Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the Mitchell Sentinel podcast. We're coming to you on a cold, windy January day. We're going to discuss something that took place in 1956. We're going to revisit the 1956 flood with some more stuff that Dad seemed fine. He said he's going to surprise me with some things that we didn't think we knew about, or I didn't think we knew about, or something like that. Anyways, what do you got there, Dad?
Okay, it's coming up on 64 years on a July 13th, 1956, which happened to be Friday the 13th.
Lucky.
Yeah, it was really lucky for us that day because it could have been worse, I guess. They said Mel Crawford, who was on the Ball Mountain Lookout Tower, he was head of the Oregon Department of Forestry, and his people had been hammered all week long up there on the lookout by lightning. And after the fourth day, these people got off the lookout and said, "We're not never coming back, and we're never doing this again." And so they walked off. So Crawford didn't have anybody to fill in. And for 4 days, we had been getting hammered by these storms every afternoon, usually about 3:30 to 4 o'clock.
Lots of rain, I assume.
Lots of rain, lots of lightning. It was just like Armageddon sort of kind of thing, if you could imagine something like that.
Similar to like a monsoon in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, Crawford, he happened to be up there on the Friday afternoon on this lookout, and he seen this storm coming, and he knew it was going to be bad news. And the only saving grace for Mitchell that afternoon was actually the storm actually split. Now, it split, and half of the water went down what we call now Myers Canyon, and that drainage, and it came in down below Mitchell, and then half of it split and came this way, and it came down Keys Creek and Johnson Creek and a little bit down Bridge Creek. And had it all came together, we would really been in really trouble.
So it kind of went around, let's see, how would I explain it? It went around like Juniper Butte up here and came down that side.
Right.
And then
it kind of paralleled the old Dalles Military Road that run up through there,
okay,
or the old Hudspeth Logging Road.
So that's where it split.
Yeah, right.
And so that the storm cells split, and then, okay, so if all that effort had been focused on this side, it would have washed more of the town out.
Exactly. But I remember going down after the flood and after the roads were kind of built back so we could really, and we were looking at the damage and seeing all this stuff. And at the mouth of where Myers Canyon and Bridge Creek comes together, you could see giant mud balls that were formed out of this adobe mud, and the rocks get together. And there must have been a tremendous whirlpool there formed there, because these were big round mud balls, perfectly symmetrically round, and they ran anywhere from hand size to 2 and 3 feet in diameter.
Wow.
And I tried to keep some of them, but after they dried out a little bit, they just crumbled and fell apart. But this is one of the phenomenons that you probably never see again. Well, anyhow, when this storm hit Mitchell, we lost, first we lost the power, then we lost the telephone, and we were kind of cut off from the outside world, except for one thing. Neil Nelson, who was the resident Wheeler County policeman that time, Oregon State policeman, he happened to be in the area. And so we did have radio communications to the outside world. I remember I was 13 years old. Of course, after the storm hit, my mother wouldn't let me out of the house, so I had to watch everything from the upstairs of our house.
But you were downtown.
Yeah, we lived in Tigertown, where I saw everything.
Yeah, you had a bird's eye view.
Yeah, so. And I was looking out of the upstairs windows. We had openings to the east, west, and just right out on the stream. And I remember looking down to the west side where the bridge is, where you come into Mitchell, and it shot about a 35-foot mobile home right over that bridge and never touched nothing. It's just like a big boat went over the top.
It just flew over the bridge.
Yeah, flew over the bridge. And then, of course, after it went down there a ways, you never seen any more part of it. I think the frame was found down by where our old station was. there were a couple of guys that run into Clarence Jones had a service station right there at that bridge, and they seen the wall of water coming. They didn't know what to do because they were out of town. So one of them, he ran up the road, and for some reason he ran into Clarence Jones's house and jumped on the bed, and he floated all the way down to where our new service station is, down by where you turn off to go to the cemetery, on the mattress as the house was breaking up all around him. And when he got out there, all he had on was his shorts. The raging water had just ripped the clothes right off of him.
So he was in the house and jumped on the mattress.
Yeah.
And floated down and it took his clothes. That's interesting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I have his name here someplace, but I didn't write it down. So, but the other one, I think he suffered a broken leg out of the whole thing. But he was pretty darn lucky. He should have got out.
So there was no fatalities in this flood?
No, luckily. Had it happen a little later in the evening, it probably would have. But I remember June Folsom had a house down there that sits about where Snae's Grocery is now, or used to be. And she ran in the house, went in the closet for some unknown reason, and just grabbed a lot of clothes out of the closet and come out with them, and they saved the clothes there, and that's about all they got out of the house. I remember that Larry Folsom and I went down the creek afterwards the next day, just looking for things, and he was quite an athlete and a baseball player, and we found his baseball glove down where our old station was, sitting on Highway 26, along with about 2 or 3 deep freezes and some other appliances down there. When it hit the bridges, the houses hit the bridges and all this other stuff, and it formed a kind of a dam, so it did a backwater. So instead of going down the channel of the creek behind our station, it went right down Highway 26, and so a lot of this stuff that was floated up there, and it got up there and it lost its buoyancy and it got high and dry, and it just came to a rest there. I remember there were clothes hanging on the road sign that says "Entering Mitchell."
Now, just a question, because trying to think about how that water would flow through there. You built the new station in 67, 68.
Right.
And so the highway had not went through there yet, correct?
No, it was there, the new highway.
Okay, the new highway. And so the old highway that loops around back by Grandpa Cannon's place, that was still there. But I mean, obviously the new road was going through there.
Yeah.
And when was that put in?
The new highway was put in about 1954, 55, about a year. And when they did it, and they bypassed Mitchell.
Well, they did the one down there, down by your new station, and the Mitchell bypass at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the old timers said, you probably shouldn't be doing this, because he said there's not room in this channel for your highway and the creek and the town.
Yeah.
Something's got to go. So if you look at some of the old pictures, even after they built the road, they raised it higher than the city. So what happened? They formed a dike that took up of half the channel where the creek used to go, and now it just pushed it over into the city.
Yes. And
yes.
There was a lawsuit after this flood because of that.
Right.
They sued ODOT, correct?
Right on. But what happened, I watched another phenomenal thing happen, is it pushed a lot of the houses, they floated away. These houses, incidentally, were not tied down. I mean, they were sitting on blocks and rocks and stuff, and the foundation wasn't nothing, because back in the day, they built their houses up a little higher off the ground. That way their hound dogs had someplace to go when it was a storm.
Well, and it was really hard to get concrete out here.
Oh, yeah, there wasn't no such thing.
Yeah, there's no foundations under most any of the houses that were built around that period.
Well, what it did, when it formed out, all them houses crushed into the bridge, it formed an actual dam. And what happened is the creek level raised, and it went back. Some of these houses were actually outside of the channel of the flood at the time, but it floated them up off of their base and floated them out into the channel, and then they came crashing down.
And so most of the bulk of the houses that went were where the city park is now. Is that right?
There was let's see, I was trying to think. Aunt Lean had a house there. There was a couple of apartments, the post office, uh, another apartment building. There was a couple of mobile homes there. Uh, Across from right on the park was the house that went with the property that uh, I think at the time Ray Gage might have owned. It's now owned by Dennis Trenholm. His
Okay.
garage. There was a house in that complex also.
So that garage was built after the flood, Dennis Treadhomes?
No, it
Oh,
was there, but it stood, but it filled it full of mud.
okay.
But the house across it was gone. Baxter Payne had a couple of houses down there. And over the years, they'd got careless and they had never seen a flood since 1904. So, well, they seen minor ones, but never a big one like that. And so they got careless and they started crowding the stream a little bit. And pretty soon, you got to respect that thing. But if you had never seen it, uh, that's the way it went down, And
So how did the flood avoid taking out where Judy's house is now? They're at the top, up by the upper bridge.
well, it was natural. If you look at some of the old pictures, Max Putz's grain mill was there.
Yeah, the grist mill.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
We've
it was
talked about that.
Yeah, we've talked about that. Well, I think about 1939, I think Carl Ringsmeyer bought the property and he took the old mill down and he built the house that Judy's living in today
Out of the mill?
out of the mill and, added a few things. In fact,
Mhm.
the old house is still standing on some of the millstones.
Yes.
But if you look where it comes across the bridge, it makes makes about a 180 right there and hits the bank on the other side.
Okay.
And what happened, that water hit that bank on the other side and it missed the house, but it diverted into that bank and it come right back across and it hit my Aunt Lean's house.
So it just kind of made a loop around it
Yeah,
and then back into town.
Yeah, back into Aunt Lean's house,
put
and
it
it
on
was
that
gone.
Trajectory
Yeah.
right through where the city park is now.
Right? Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and that house I think Reed's probably built the house and they lived there, but my Aunt Lean and cousin Lawrence Siegfried, they lived there. And as the day progressed and more stuff, it was almost eerie how fast the water came up and then how fast it quit. I mean, you didn't have no sustained flow. It just.
What was the duration of the storm that preceded the flood? Like, how long did it rain before it started?
About 35 to 40 minutes.
And so you'd had, 4 or 5 days of storms before, so all the ground was saturated and wet.
To the point where, and most of this stuff can't saturate because it's rock anyway. So.
And so it was just ready to go.
And right there where the upper end of Mitchell, there where what they call the Y is.
The east side of town.
Yeah, we saw that a year or so ago when we had the other little flood. It came down that canyon, but I remember it came down that canyon and it was like the gravel and the rocks and the debris that left was probably 30 or 40 feet deep right
Wow.
there, and it formed a natural dam across the highway, so you wouldn't.
And so that helped kind of funnel more water in there, and so after the flood. How long? I mean, were you landlocked here? Were you kind of isolated? What was the fallout after?
Yeah, we were, we pretty lucky because we had just gotten power from Columbia Power Co-op probably in 1954, which meant the line was pretty new and everything. But we were without power here for 26 hours, which was really a minor outage compared to what it could have been because. Anything that was in the stream flow or anything was gone, and they had to come in and redo it. And
there's probably live power lines here and there, and
yeah, well, they shut it down probably over at the substation when they contacted us.
So Bob's Ashmead's generator still wasn't.
No, actually, I was reading something the other day. When his power went out and the co-op actually got it, they put in 2 diesel generators up at Clarence, up at the Dollarhide Pond.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, to carry us for a year. So I'd forgotten about that until I read it. I don't know, maybe 6, 8 months before we got our own power generated from Bonneville. They were running the power through here, and you
Okay.
paid them for the power instead of Ashmead.
Now, was the Mill Pond Mill still
Yeah, the mill
going at
pond's
that
been
time?
there. Yeah, it was.
I mean, was the mill was
I don't think the mill was there at that time. Maybe it might have been, but then there was a flat place, and somehow
that they just put the generators
that's
in
where
there?
and got them out of town. You didn't have to hear the noise like you did Ashmead.
Well, I remember there was some cement, concrete and stuff up there. Looked like something left over.
That was for the generator for the mill, a steam
Oh, okay.
generator. When
Different
you had the
generator.
power. Yeah. So that didn't work there, but yeah, and I guess for a kid that's 13 years old, I had never seen anything and witnessed anything that powerful. But
I don't imagine too many folks around
Yeah.
here had.
I remember as we went down, we probably went down to the Larry and I went down to the Painted Hills turnoff probably. And every bridge that they'd built in 1954, they'd build them with cement girders underneath them and everything. Every bridge on the new realigned highway went out. It did not tear the bridges out or they did not drop, but it did a lot of damage to the piers and stuff that were poured there. But it washed around the ends of them, and it might be 30 or 40 feet across to where there was no road left. I think we had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bridges. 5 bridges that went out.
Well, but the bridges in town here, they stood. I mean, they survived that flood. The ones that went into Mitchell.
Well, yeah, it did some damage to the lower one and the upper one too, but it did not wash them out because that old one was built many years ago, and they'd seen a few flood or two by then.
And it was higher.
Yeah, it was up in there. Get more water
underneath it.
flow it through there.
And they survived until, well, here in the last decade or so.
Yeah, they had to be
fixed both of
yeah,
them. But
yeah.
I thought that's pretty interesting.
It's another thing was they realigned the highway. ODOT did and everything. They thought that was so cool. But it took about 12 hours to go back and go down the old road, which they hadn't demolished or anything, and open it up to get the traffic flowing back through where the old highway was.
Yeah, the old highway.
Because these old timers knew exactly where the floods were coming from and everything, and so they had built the highway there. It may not have been the straightest, but it was the best.
Yeah, it might have. It might have been the easiest too, because putting bridges in, excessive bridges, and straight shot.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And back in the day, they valued the land a little more because that Owens place, when they realigned the highway and put it across there, they eliminated 2 really good fields.
Yeah,
they just cut them in half, and they had to do
there.
some different thing. But and one thing I really want to talk about was how people came together to help the people of Mitchell. Like I said, we did have radio out, so people knew what were happening, and so they were getting help mobilized even as the flood was just still waning and running down. But I remember Jack Collins and 2 or 3 other airplanes landed on Highway 26 down by the state highway shop before they built the state highway shop then.
Mm-hmm.
But
on that big field or on the road?
On the road.
There's no cars coming through there. All the bridges were washed out.
Yeah, they weren't going to go anywhere.
Well, there was essentially no travel between Mitchell and Prineville for how many days?
It was funny. I 12 or 13 hours.
Only. That was it?
Yeah, they had. Now the farmers came in and they brought all their equipment in. Hudspeth Land and Livestock and Hudspeth Pine. They took their crews, brought all their equipment in, and they had, and then the state ODOT, they had brought in some more of their equipment because ODOT suffered probably a bigger loss than anybody because their ODOT maintenance shop set right on floodplain, and they lost at least 2 scoop mobiles and maybe 2 or 3 trucks that went down.
Well, those scoop mobiles weren't worth much anyways. But
well, yeah, but
better than nothing.
Yeah, it weren't.
Well, where the ODOT used to be where the county shop is
Right.
now, right next to the Assembly of God Church
I
Spoken
remember
Hostel.
one of those scoop mobiles they found between in the stream right below between Bailey Butte and Mitchell Rock.
Oh wow!
Junior Jones had a 19, I think 50 something Oldsmobile, really a hot, nice little car, and they had it on a lift inside Jones's garage, working on it when the flood hit. And they found what was left of it right there at the bridge right by Mitchell Rock, and there was not much left of it. It was kind of,
I don't
tell
imagine
by the frame and stuff.
what it
But
was.
Clarence Jones had, he also had the International dealership, and he had 3 Internationals sitting down there, International pickups, the big heavy 3/4 ones. And he lost 2 of those, and it was funny. Now, those are big, bulky trucks and heavy and everything, but Leroy Smith had a 1956 Crown Victoria. Now, it was sitting between 2 of these Internationals there, and he just kind of had it stored and parked there. Clarence was probably working on it or something. Anyhow, it floated the 56 Ford up and kind of back out and put it in kind of a backwater over there. And when the water went down, it just stayed there. And so it saved that car. But the 2 Internationals, they the third bridge down, one of them was wrapped around it, and all you could tell was just the frame and the motor. That's the only thing attached. And it's funny, they took the motor out of that. That's all they could salvage, and then Clarence, he cleaned it up a little bit and everything, and they put it in the old Mitchell fire truck
Nice.
later on.
Well, where was Clarence's shop exactly?
Well,
So
okay,
people know.
he had his service station right on the, as you're coming into Mitchell on the new bridge, it was on the left-hand side was his service station.
So as you're coming in from the west,
Yeah,
and it was on the right hand side.
it was on the left.
On the
The
left.
service station was. Okay, this is where he did his gas and had his snacks and treats.
So where would that be now? What's there now?
Okay, now right directly across the street is the new post office.
Okay.
That's where he had his garage, where he worked on trucks and stuff. And back this way a little bit west was where he had his house.
Okay. And so his shop was, the service station is where Snae's house is now.
It's down this way just a little bit.
Just a skosh. Right in the flood area.
Right there where the little pond thing is, they built right across from the post office.
Gosh, that is in a pretty precarious spot.
But you know what happened? When they built that bridge there, they built the west end of it up high to realign with the elevated highway, the bypassed highway, and they dropped the east end of it down to where it was pretty low. Well, what happened with it being high up on that one end and low on the other, when all the houses crashed into the bridge and formed a dam, the water was directed right into Jones's place.
Yep, right in there.
Yeah. And Ezra Blaylock, which is an Ann, they had a place just right behind the service station, and it went. Grunts, they had a place there. Mrs. Jackson did not take her house, but it took a lot of the outbuildings and stuff there alongside.
I always thought that was pretty incredible that it didn't take her house out, because it was just right there on the creek.
There. But it had a pretty straight shot, and for some reason it just
the channel was just faster,
and it got out of there quicker.
Huh.
Ralph Folsom had a place down there, and I think he was living in a little trailer of some kind, and it went out. The post office, we see pictures of the post office here today that. The front end looked perfectly intact, but from the front end back, there wasn't nothing left. It just crunched in it and washed the safe. The safe they found down by the Painted Hills, which is about, 10 miles probably.
Well, where was that post office located?
Well, today it'd be about where Pacific Pride is in Mitchell.
Okay.
The service station across from
So
the hotel.
was it like right near the Texaco?
Yeah, right next to in the same kind of little complex. There was
Okay.
a Texaco apartment building and then the post office.
Because I remember when I was a kid, there was Paul the Barber's place there right next.
That was probably in. I think they had to tear the post office down, but that was probably in the apartment complex.
Oh, okay. So it washed that kind of the back. I remember seeing pictures washing the back side of the Texaco.
Yeah, washed it all the way around. Yeah. So, well, yeah, it was pretty exciting here for a while, and a lot happening. But I was reading something today, and the radio stations in Central Oregon did a great job. They, I think, let's see, make sure I get this right. KJUN, KRCO, and KBND in Bend. Excuse me. They got it out on the air, and people started putting stuff together. And they said these people need furniture, need clothes, they need this, they need that. In the meantime, the Elks Club, they got behind the project, as did the Prineville Merchants. Kilgore's Dairy made sure we had milk 2 or 3 different times, gallons and gallons of milk. Let's see, the bread company was Gordon's Bread in Central Oregon. They made sure we had plenty of bread. And I remember we had just gotten the community hall completed not too long before that. And I remember they had a big sink over there, and they brought over ice and milk, and then they had the bread on the tables and everything, but they were lined up, and it was just covered with milk, bread, and
food.
Food, yeah. Well, not too much food, but there was some.
Just staples.
Yeah, and let's see, there was I was trying to think. Ben Portland Freight Line at the time, I think, was the one, and they loaded up all these trucks with all this stuff, and they brought it over, and they supplied the crews to unload it and everything. So it was kind of a great thing. And then the Red Cross, they helped out. They rounded up, they cleaned out all the bedding in all the stores in Central Oregon. They brought in enough bedding and stuff for 15 families that had washed out. I don't know the thinking. They didn't have a house to put it in, but they had clean bedding anyhow wherever they wanted to put it.
Well, yeah, they could probably shack up with somebody else.
Yeah, but people didn't have to worry about a place to stay. I remember Folson's. They moved up. They moved in with their Gibbs mother-in-law, which was Mrs. Weinberger, there in the old Central Hotel building, and they stayed in there till they built their house a year or so later. But yeah, I think they did a great job. And another thing I came up with, it's, let's see, make sure I get this right. It's the Oregon Journal Juniors. Now this, at the time, the Oregon Journal was a newspaper, and it was a competitor to the Oregonian.
Mm-hmm.
But they had this group, and there's about 40 or 45 different groups in this. There's some musical groups, dancing groups, entertainment groups, mimics, comedians, all this stuff.
What was a mimic?
That's a guy that make fun of you and me.
A comedian?
Yeah. Yeah, like...
I've never heard of a mimic.
Rich Little.
Oh, like an impersonator.
Yeah, the impressionist.
Impressionist, yeah.
That's what they... Well, anyhow, they went to Redmond, and they put on this show. And they raised a bunch of money because all the receipts went to the flood victims of the 1956 Mitchell flood.
Well, it really received a lot of press.
Yeah, they did. And I have pictures here of they had this bus, and they not only did they do this for Mitchell, but this group also, and they were paid by the Oregon Journal, and they would go around anytime somebody had a catastrophic event or something, or they
put on a show. They do
a fundraiser, and yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. They and it went to a good cause.
Well, we'll get some of these pictures up on the Facebook page here at some point. It's not going to happen today, though, I tell you.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. So I really have to think that it might have been a God-caused event, but it brought out the goodness of a lot of people, and I think we should be thankful that we have people that care nowadays.
Oh, yeah. That seems to be like when the chips are down, folks tend to get together and make a difference.
Right. Yeah, I remember it was just pretty...
Well, it's pretty much like a huge event in your life, and everybody that around you, you guys have this shared experience
Yeah.
that in this area, and everybody, all the old timers, talk about that time.
Yeah. Now, Slim Helms, who was the AW of Helms, who had seen the flood of 1913,
He was also the one that started the Mitchell Sentinel newspaper, correct?
I don't think he was, but I think some of his relation did.
Okay, it was a Helms. I
It
know,
was a Helms.
an abbreviated
I mean,
name.
yeah. The Helms was related to the Carroll family, and I don't know if I told you. I think I mentioned this that back in the Prohibition days, they also made a little whiskey, and on the label on the bottle they put on there, guaranteed 7 fights to bottle. So it must have been fighting whiskey.
Must have been.
Yeah, right.
Rock.
Yeah, but anyhow, they Slim said that the flood. Let's see, I say 1913. I didn't mean that. It was 1904. He said that flood was bigger, but this flood was more cruel and tragic because even though there was a couple of lives lost in the other one, this one took a lot more property. They figured back in 1956, they figured over $1 million in losses of property.
That's a fair amount.
Yeah. And like you said, they did go to court. They did a class action suit against the Oregon Department of Transportation because they had been forewarned and they did not heed. And I think they got a little over $200,000, which was probably a drop in the bucket. By the time the attorney fees got probably some of it. They didn't get a lot of it, but Clarence Jones did get to relocate his service station out on the highway.
Yep.
And he did well out there. But a lot of that stuff. I tell people, yeah, you want to go on a treasure hunt, you go on Bridge Creek because all those old timers had coin collections. And Clarence, I know, had a gallon jar of silver dollars.
Oh, a gallon? That's quite a bit.
That's quite a few, yeah.
And you lost that, huh?
Yeah. I remember one day the hippie dude come into my station. He said, "Is it okay if I camp down there in that green place next to the creek?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't care." So he went down and he camped. The next morning he come up and he showed me this old 50-cent piece. And he said, I was bending over washing up in that creek this morning and I seen this laying there. I said, "Well, I guess it's your find." I said, "I'd sure like to have it, but you found it. You keep it." So I'm sure it was some of
Junior's money.
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
Clarence.
Yeah. So that just about covers the 56 flood.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was I met some friends in Bend, a friend of mine, and I was having dinner in Portland at his mother's house and his stepdad's, and it turned out that his stepdad, his name was Bill Gildebrandt, I think, and he was one of the attorneys that fought the government or fought the state of Oregon on behalf of Mitchell in order to get some of that $200,000. It was kind of funny. That was like in '92, I think.
Yeah, paths cross again.
Yeah, huh? I told him where I was from. It's like, well, yeah, I represented the city of Mitchell in 1956.
Yeah, they had. I remember another thing that Horndons lived there where Cindy Kopinski lives now, and they had a fairly new Oldsmobile car, and they had it parked there. Every time we have a flood, it comes over that bluff above Cindy's and comes across the highway.
Was there a lot of water come down that way?
Yeah, well, enough to wash that car into the highway and cover it up, and you couldn't see the car.
Oh, wow.
It was
see the top.
Yeah, you could see the top. Kids had scraped the top off, and they found the car. It just rolled it into the highway.
I think I remember seeing a picture of that.
Yeah, and then it went across, and then it flooded the church and the parsonage and a couple of houses over there too.
I'll be there.
Yeah, so it came from all directions.
Well, it's something we need to be thinking about. Shoot, it's been raining off and on here for a day or so. I doubt if we'll have that kind of flood, but in the summer, we get those lightning storms.
Well, we're nigh on to what 60? What did I say?
64 years.
64 years.
Well, we had the Good Friday flood last year.
Yeah,
that was a tiny little one.
That was a mini flood compared to all the rest of these, but it did do enough damage. But I got pictures of the flood they had in 1925 that put mud in the street just like that one down did the Good Friday flood did.
Well, when you build a town in a canyon, you're just going to get floods.
Well, yeah. Well, when they built it here for the water, but they didn't know that water came with a curse.
Yeah. So I imagine we'll have more.
Yep.
People always think that the flood of 56 came down Bridge Creek. I'd have to correct them because I said, no, it came down Keys Creek.
Keys Creek and Johnson Creek, which actually comes into Bridge Creek. But Bridge Creek did not come down Bridge Creek per se from the north rim of Pisgah in that area, up in the timber. That's got deeper soils, and
it would have absorbed it.
Yeah, it absorbed it a lot more than what the other did.
Yeah, and there's just it came down to this desolate area, and I probably back then there's less juniper trees to soak it up. After 4 or 5 days of that rain just saturating that ground, there was just nowhere else for it to go.
Right.
I heard it was like a 30 or 40 foot wall of water.
Well, I didn't get out with a tape measure and measure that sucker.
It looked pretty big, huh?
But yeah, man, I tell you what, it probably looked bigger than it actually was, but it was enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's but I remember, I don't know when one of them things happens where you go. I think you just get out of the floodplain and hunker in place because
go up.
I remember. Well, you can't do that either because I remember we was thinking about hitting upon the hillside and everything, and the lightning was just dancing around like crazy.
Oh yeah.
In fact, it was the thunder was deafening, so it just shaking and everything. And actually, it's the first time I've ever been around a thunderstorm where you could actually smell the ozone.
Did your hair stand on end too? For electricity?
Not from the electricity.
Just for being scared.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. We got anything else to say about the flood?
Nope. Well, there you have it. That's the rundown on the 1956 flood.
Yeah, like you said, if there's anybody out there would like to add to it, we're always welcome to. Or if you got some corrections.
Yeah. Well, if you have any corrections, send them to the Mitchell Sentinel podcast in care of Cannon's Tire Center, P.O. Box 7, Mitchell, Oregon 97750.
Yeah. Or if you want to add on, and we always like to put it in our archives and send us keep your cards and letters and pictures coming in.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, that about does it for us this week. What do you think, Dad?
I think may the good Lord keep a liking to you.
Sure hope he does.